One small step for man. Contact with a test one.
Hi, it's me, Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut. Welcome to a mission that we've been waiting for 2.5 years. This is something that I've been waiting for a long time. I don't know if you guys have been around since the end of 2019 at the last launch attempt of the Boeing Starliner, previously known as the CST-100, launching on top of United Launch Alliance's mighty Atlas V. And of course, you know, as we get into these streams, the best thing we can do is just simply go through our pre-launch preview. And the best way to do that is by going to a website known as everydayastronaut.com. And then, of course, you can just click on our upcoming launch tab and click on the mission that you're hoping to read about. And here we have the mission for OFT-2, that is Orbital Flight Test 2, CST-100 Starliner uncrewed. No one on this one yet, but this is the final step to be able to hopefully be able to get people on top of this beast here pretty soon. So this is, of course, hopefully going to be taking off here in about 32 minutes. As you can see, it's scheduled to take off at 22:54 and 47 seconds UTC, 18 or 6:54 and 47 seconds Eastern time zone. And this is an instantaneous launch window. It has to go off basically at the exact second. There is a little bit of RAM steering that the Atlas V can do, but it is more or less an instantaneous launch window. And I believe for these ones, it is purely instantaneous. So it has to take off at that second, which is kind of nuts. That's the type of stuff that I love about spaceflight. Mission name, this is the CST-100 Starliner Orbital Flight Test 2. The last orbital flight test was December 2019, and this is the second time they've had it out to the pad since then. They had some pretty serious issues last summer, but it seems like everything's good to go. They're getting really far into the countdown, which we'll be tuning into in just a second. But the launch provider for this, the companies that's taking this into orbit to be able to go to the International Space Station is United Launch Alliance, or ULA. Of course, they're the most, I would still say they're the most reliable and, one of definitely the most heritaged U.S. launch provider. And they currently are basically only flying the Atlas V, but hopefully soon they'll be flying their Vulcan rocket as well. Hopefully this year. We'll see. Customer who's paying for this. This is Boeing. Boeing is paying for this technically, and NASA's paying Boeing. But it is basically, in this case, actually, I think it is purely Boeing paying for this because they have to redo it from the previous test. So that must be exactly why it's worded that way. The rocket is the Atlas V N22. That means, so the Atlas V, normally it goes the fairing size, the number of solid rocket boosters, and then the number of RL-10s on the Centaur upper stage, or the upper stage engines. And in this case, the N is for no fairing because it has just the capsule sitting on top of the rocket. You don't want to put the capsule inside of like a nose cone in case you need to abort. So the capsule is the fairing. So there's no fairing N. It has 2 solid rocket boosters, and it has 2 RL-10s on the upper stage in order to provide a high enough thrust to be able to not do a super lofted trajectory, which makes it able to be able to be abort. They can use the abort mode all the way through the entire launch criteria by using this N22 rocket. I do a pretty deep dive on exactly why and how in a video I did comparing this vehicle to SpaceX's Crew Dragon capsule. So if you look up just Starliner versus Crew Dragon capsule, I'm sure you'll find it. It came out in 2019, but it's still quite relevant today. And we go kind of into why they have things like the dual RL-10s. It weighs around 13 metric tons, so 13,000 kilograms, around 29,000 pounds. Where is the spacecraft going? It is going to be rendezvousing, and meeting up and docking with the International Space Station, which is about 400 kilometers above Earth orbit at a 51.6 degree inclination. Will they be attempting to recover the first stage? Nope, this is not a capability of ULA or the Atlas V for sure. Where will the first stage land? This is, of course, vestigial from the Falcon 9. Will they be attempting to recover the fairings? The Atlas V N22 has no fairings. Are these fairings new? There are no fairings, so obviously, yeah. How's the weather looking? The weather is currently 90% go for launch. It's the second launch of the Atlas V in the N22 configuration. The only other time was on OFT-1, the first flight attempt of this particular rocket. This is the 57th orbital launch attempt of 2022 altogether for all rockets. This is the 150th ULA mission. That's quite a bit. And this is the 93rd Atlas V mission, the old workhorse. Fun to see it just kicking butt. So, of course, if you guys want to learn more about this particular mission, go ahead and read through our awesome pre-launch preview. It gets pretty in-depth here. Yeah, so in the first launch attempt, by the way, December 2019, yeah, it ran into some issues. We can talk about that here in a little bit. I'm not sure if they're going to be mentioning it too much on stream. But this is the capsule. It's composed of two main parts, the crew module and the service module. The service module houses the launch abort motors, which are in the pusher configuration, meaning they push up from the bottom, unlike a more traditional tower, a launch abort tower that would be mounted on the nose, which would have to be in the tractor configuration, so pulling the capsule free from any issues. Yeah, it's got radiators, orbital moving thrusters, solar panels on the bottom, lots of fun stuff. Yeah, it lands on land, which is really interesting for a capsule. Other than, I mean, of course, you know, Blue Origin's New Shepard does that, and so does the Soyuz capsule, of course. But in the United States, this is the first time an orbital capsule will be landing on land. Of course, the space shuttle landed on land, but that was not a capsule. But yeah, pretty cool capability, and helps them hopefully be able to handle their. They're hoping to be able to do 10 reflights of this vehicle. So this is the Atlas V with the Starliner. Like I said, it has two of these RL-10 engines on the upper stage and two solid rocket boosters down attached to the core. And sitting on top of it is the Boeing CST-100 Starliner without any fairing. Yeah. So this is pretty much everything. Again, read through this, everydayastronaut.com, click on upcoming launches, and check out our list of pre-launch previews. But I need you guys to all say thank you so much to Claire Percival for writing this article. So everyone say thank you, Claire, because without our awesome website crew, we wouldn't have these great pre-launch previews. And frankly, they keep me up to date. So so we owe them a nice big thank you. And also, before we get started too, I did want to remind you, we do actually have 10% off of the RS-25 shirt. This is a new shirt that I don't know if you guys have really seen this one too much. RS-25, it's at, of course, the heart of the upcoming SLS rocket. It was at the heart of the space shuttle. It's actually still is kind of one of my favorite engines just because it's so efficient, so cool. You can get 10% off this shirt and this hat by using coupon code LAUNCHDAY. And go to everydayastronaut.com/shop. Shop around, check out our cool apparel. We are getting some new merch coming out here soon, including restocking our space shuttle ejection escape suit hoodie, which is one of my all-time favorites. It's also getting updated and actually a little bit more detailed, which I'm really excited about. But yeah, you can get 10% off of the RS-25 shirt today. We do actually have it in, I think we have it in 2 colorways. Maybe not yet. Soon we're going to have it in 2 colorways. Yeah, by using coupon code LAUNCHDAY. All one word, all lowercase, LAUNCHDAY. But we actually have a stream up, and I'm going to have a lot of people to thank in this thing. And I do have to say that right now my pop-up chat thing might not be working. Last time I was right about to do this on stream here beforehand. But it unfortunately crashed my computer. So maybe I won't be doing that. And actually, let me also pull up the overlay here while these are talking, so you guys can always have a clock, at least get an estimate on what time it's supposed to be taking off here. So there you go. Right now, you know, again, I want to be here to answer as many of your guys' questions as possible. I'm going to try launching our thing so we can throw up chats, but if it crashes, I'm sorry. We'll see. I mean, maybe it was just totally bad luck that it crashed right when I clicked on it. Haha. Okay, it did not, but now I have to. I was going to say, why would it? Why would it crash my computer? I don't know. Maybe it's just bad luck. Give me 1 second. I'm getting logged in here. Maybe. And here we go. I will now be able to answer your questions. And okay, so yeah, there's a lot of great comments from people asking kind of why the Atlas V, you know, and why Starliner is kind of even existing at this point. But the first thing I want to remind you guys as we're watching this launch, as we're watching this together, the number one thing here to remember is that this still represents NASA. This launch still represents the Commercial Crew Program. And frankly, when it comes to Congress and the general public, any failure in the Commercial Crew Program just doesn't look good. So this has all been paid for already. We want it to succeed. We want to have redundancy on the international, with our access to the International Space Station, especially now with the way things are with Russia and Roscosmos. we really want to have 2 capable human spaceflight systems getting to the International Space Station. And a failure of this, you're free to have your own opinion however you want, but I can't stand when people are cheering for something to go wrong. In my opinion, I want this to go just perfectly. I want Boeing to be hopefully rejuvenated and come back swinging really hard with a flawless mission to the International Space Station, because that's what's best for us spaceflight fans. That's what's best for NASA and the U.S. taxpayers' money, as well as for this just to simply work and become operational and start flying astronauts safely. That's what I'm hoping. I just wanted to put that out there right at the beginning, and I hope you guys can join me kind of in, Team Space, guys. You knew what I was gonna say before we even started. So this is an interesting comment here from Michael Lane. Remember, you guys, just have some good comments in the chat. Please keep it friendly. If you have a good question, we'll try to bring it up into stream if it's relevant, and I'll ask it on air. You don't have to do super chat or any of that kind of stuff. Just ask a good question and it will pop up, including this one. This is a really interesting thing to point out, and it is true. Michael Lane, you are recalling correctly. Starliner could technically launch on a Falcon 9. When they were first going through what rocket it could launch on, the 3 things that were originally proposed, I believe, all the way back in like 2010, was actually the Atlas V, the Falcon 9, and believe it or not, the Delta IV medium, which doesn't make any sense because the Delta IV has never actually been crew rated, so it would have had to go through who knows what to be able to prepare to launch humans, but it actually was in consideration at the very, very beginning of the CST-100, now known as the Starliner. So, yes, this is, let's get to another question here from our friend Musical Wolves, who always has fantastic questions, and I'm always so thankful for your chats. Musical Wolves, since Starliner still is in its testing phase, what type of stuff would it likely bring back from the ISS? That's actually a really good question. The good thing is the reentry portion of Starliner has been proven out. So I feel like NASA would be more prone this time around to feel comfortable and confident sending valuable payloads back down from the International Space Station on this vehicle this time, because it has already proven. So the first time, for those of you that might not be familiar, in 2019, when it tried to go to the International Space Station for the first time, as soon as it detached from the Atlas V, as soon as the spacecraft actually detached from the Saturn V, it ended up kind of like spinning out of control. Its internal mission clock was it 11 hours off? It was wildly off, and thought it was in a totally different phase of the mission. So it started trying to align itself and phase itself to be in a totally different place in space, assuming that it was like way off course or something, or assuming it was to that point in the mission, which it clearly was not. Because of all that wild thruster firing, they ran out of the propellant, out of the maneuvering propellant, out of the hypergolic propellants that would normally get it up to the International Space Station and allow it to dock and do all those things. It had to be called off while in orbit. So it was just stuck in low Earth orbit. Now, they were able to do a few more things on orbit, kind of proving out, once they stopped that command and figured out the problem, they were able to regain control of the spacecraft. And then a few days later, they were able to safely return the vehicle from space and safely touch down softly. So now there still was a problem right before they're about to re-enter. A few hours, they noticed an anomaly in the code that would have accidentally had the trunk jettison and potentially could have potentially ran into Starliner as it jettisoned. They caught that, and then it did successfully recover, land and recover right on target. So that portion of flight has been proven out. The initial launch, obviously, on Atlas V has been proven out. So all it has to do now is just simply have a smooth ride up to the International Space Station, which would take about 24 hours. So hopefully once it's in orbit, everything kind of just goes as planned. And then, yeah, if NASA deems it fit to be able to return some important, valuable things that are up on the ISS, they sure can and or will. All right, let's keep going here. Sorry, that was kind of a long one. All right, this is from David Willis. Just want to remind everyone, hello, David, that Boeing can and does do great things in space. So let's cheer them on today, Team Space. That's my mantra. I don't want any company to ever underperform. I want to see companies perform well. And today I want to see Boeing, a legacy aerospace company, perform flawlessly. That's what I want today. Obviously they were at the heart of the space shuttle. They built a lot of the components of the Saturn V. They obviously are the core stage and the prime contractor for SLS.
100 pull for terminal count. Report readiness to support terminal count when prompted. MSR manager. MSR is ready. STC.
ECT is ready.
Flight. Flight is go. CST-100 is proceeding with final configuration for launch. All operators monitor LCCs and report any LCC violations to your operations leads. SMD, Slick, launch ops.
SMD.
CST-100 is ready for terminal count. The management poll for launch will be conducted on ULA Channel 3 at L-8 minutes.
Cool.
SMD copies.
All right, sounds good. We are good for that. So, Dylan, can you talk to us a little bit more about?
So yeah, so in about 8 minutes, we're going to have the go no go poll from United Launch Alliance on the side of the Atlas V to make sure that they are good to go for this launch, and that will be awesome. I love a good go no go poll. Although, frankly, after talking, I spoke with Chris Kemp from Astra, seeing how SpaceX does things lately, and a lot of other commercial crew providers. They're trying to get rid of the go no go poll because it is kind of it's a relic of manual control or manual overrides and humans watching every little valve and every little data stream. And obviously these days, a lot of people are trying to streamline that process and remove things like go, no go polls, or at least remove certain things that are easy to automate. In general, a computer can look at a set of values and easily know if it's too high or too low, and then can alert a human if something is off nominal or nominal. So it still is a bit of a relic to hear the go no go poll, but I kind of love it. Like it's kind of inefficient, and it's probably going to start going away in the future. So I like to savor it because of that. That might be what it is. Curious Gamer, thank you for 5 months of membership. I really appreciate that. So this is a good question, Matthew. Why does Starliner do its own orbital insertion burn instead of using Centaur? So that's it's fairly normal for a lot of spacecraft to be put into just barely suborbital. Like we're talking 99% orbital, and then that way the upper stage can just re-enter and burn up on re-entry. That way you're not contributing to space debris. You're not polluting low Earth orbit. So yeah, that's and then the spacecraft just has to do a tiny little, as Elon Musk once said about what was that in reference to? It was a mouse fart, but in reference to Newton's, it just basically has to do a small mouse fart amount of propellant to just kind of toot itself right into orbit, and so this is a good question from Olga. So wait, so is it a test or do they try to send it to the ISS? It is a test. And they're trying to send it to the ISS. The test is getting it successfully to the International Space Station, successfully docking to the International Space Station, remaining on station for a while, and then coming back down. That's what makes this mission a success. Will be all of those things getting checked off today. They take a fairly cautious approach at the International Space Station with several keep-out zones as it approaches. It has to kind of do a lot of station keeping and holding, almost like a holding pattern as it gets closer and closer to the International Space Station. But yeah, it'll have to basically, check all of those things off. And once it does that, we'll be good to go. So, so it's both. It's both a test, and the test is to go to the International Space Station. Let's see. This is a good question here. Sean, this is a good one. If the RD-180 is so great, why hasn't anyone just reverse engineered it and started making them in the United States? Well, so the RD-180 is at the heart of the Atlas V, and it's basically a sibling to the RD-170 and the RD-171, which is the world's most powerful liquid-fueled rocket that has ever flown. And flown successfully, of course. It flew twice on the Energia rocket as the RD-170. It's flown like 80 sometimes on the Zenit rocket as the RD-171. The only difference is how many axes can the 4 nozzles on that engine gimbal? Because that's what's weird about the RD-170. It has a single engine, a single turbo pump, a single power pack, connected to 4 separate nozzles. And the Soviet Union was famous for doing this in order to avoid having, it's actually easier to avoid having combustion instability in smaller chambers. So instead of having like one giant chamber like the F1, they actually just made multiple chambers. It just kept plumbing from the same turbo pump to multiple chambers. And that was their easy way of scaling up the output of an engine. That being said, the RD-180 is basically a scaled down half-size version of the RD-170. It's almost cut it in half, reduce the turbo pump in half, reduce the output in half. Everything is pretty much in half. And it's a fantastic engine. Why hasn't it been reverse engineered? I mean, in general, like the closest thing I can think of is the Aerojet has the AJ26, which was an NK. What was the AR1? They had the AR1, which was a similar closed cycle, an oxygen-rich closed cycle Carolox engine, and I don't think it was necessarily a ripoff, but you know, I don't know. That's actually quite a good question. I'm still surprised that to date, the United States still has not flown to orbit a U.S. built closed cycle, oxygen-rich closed cycle engine. The BE-4 is very likely to be the first. Launcher has an exciting closed cycle engine coming up. That's going to be in the U.S. There's quite a few kind of coming up. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, if all this, there's 2 videos you need to watch. If what I'm saying right now in the last 3 minutes has made you glaze over and you're like, I have no idea what you're saying. My most recent video that I put out, how do you power a rocket engine? It's about the engine cycles. Please watch that video. I promise if you watch that video and you make it all the way through, I will walk you through all of this stuff. And I really think that video is kind of at the pinnacle of what I do best, you know, of taking something simple and getting more and more and more complicated. And by the end of it, you will understand engine cycles very well, I promise. And you'll understand what's at the heart of these beasts. The other one, of course, if you want to know about the RD-180 and the RD-170 would be my deep dive on the family tree of Soviet rocket engines. It's a very long one. Congratulations to those of you who have made it through it all the way. A time or two, you're soldiers, because that one is for the nerdiest of nerds. But yeah, let's see here. This is Brian Brooks. This is cool. Super proud of my cousin, astronaut Barry Wilmore, who is the commander of the Starliner crewed mission. Brian, that is awesome. We're all, obviously, like I said, we're all cheering for this mission to go well today, so that so Boeing and NASA can keep your cousin safe. Super cool. I mean, come on, guys. That's cool. That's amazing. Let's see here. They are moving the tower.
You know today that we are updating our internal camera system on Starliner to have more live views inside in the future. But for today, we'll be able to watch cameras on the rocket. We will also have live telemetry feeding back that will provide us with a real-time look at a spacecraft model that we will be able to take a look at and know exactly what's happening with the spacecraft when video is not possible as it moves through the dynamic phases of flight. So we are coming up on L-10, getting very close here, and we are now waiting to hear the next call, which will be to verify that Starliner is on internal power, and we were going to listen into the loops for just a few seconds.
Yes, here comes that go no-go poll we were talking about. Yeah, that's, again, Brian, that's super cool.
L-10 minutes.
L-10.
Flight, verify CST 100 on internal power.
And Starliner
Verified.
is now on internal power. Today is an instantaneous launch window. You may be sometimes used to seeing that the time of launch can shift a bit, but not for us today. We have a launch window that we have to go right on the dot. And that,
in case you are wondering, their audio is weird. If it sounds like it's like crunching in the wind or something, I've checked on a few different devices. Our Discord channel was able to confirm that the NASA stream has a little just kind of crunchy audio. I think it's like an encoding issue. There's nothing on our end, nothing we can do about it besides just listen. One thing I did want to point out here, Carrot F in our Discord channel asks if there's going to be a launch abort test like we saw for SpaceX. And a launch abort would be where it's in-flight launch abort. There will not be a launch abort test of this vehicle. Boeing opted out of it. They basically said they thought it'd be easier. Oh.
Arm is stowed and latched for launch.
everything is looking good, and the silence is golden at the moment.
Cool. So I'll keep answering that question about in 38 seconds. They'll give us the update on the go, no go. So I have 30 seconds to explain this. So basically, in the traditional Boeing versus SpaceX mantra, SpaceX thought it'd be easier.
And Starliner's ordnance is configured for launch now. That basically means that the devices that initiate our separation events are ready to support both nominal and contingency operations that happen or could happen during the ascent profile.
Outline at 8 minutes.
We are 8 minutes to launch.
So here comes the go, no go poll, hopefully. I love that shot looking down the rocket. Hopefully we'll hear that.
All right,
go,
we
no
did
go
hear on
poll.
one of the other loops that mission manager.
LC arm control.
Go ahead.
First step 260. Crew access arm stowed for launch.
Roger.
And that call indicating that the crew access arm is now stowed and latched for launch.
LC switch to ready position. All steps are complete prior to the status check.
So we're going to listen in now to Chief Launch Conductor Doug Lebo poll his team. Coming up in 10 seconds.
Outline is 7 minutes.
Status check to proceed with terminal count. Atlas systems, propulsion.
Go.
Hydraulic.
Go.
Pneumatic.
Go.
LO2.
Go.
Water.
Go.
Centaur systems, propulsion.
Go.
Pneumatic.
Go.
LO2.
Go.
LH2.
Go.
Has gas.
Go.
Electrical systems, airborne.
Go.
Ground.
Go.
Facility.
Go.
RFFTS.
Go.
Flight control.
Go.
GCQ.
Go.
Op support.
Go.
Com.
Go.
Umbilicals.
Go.
Arm control.
Go.
ECS.
Go.
Redline monitor.
Go.
Quality.
Go.
Op safety manager.
Go.
ULA safety officer.
Go.
Vehicle system engineer.
Go.
Anomaly chief.
Go.
Range coordinator.
Cleared to proceed.
Flight director.
Houston Flight is go.
Launch director.
You have permission to launch.
Proceeding with the count. ALC, verify T0 is set for 22:54:47 Zulu.
Verified.
Good.
Outline is 6 minutes.
And Lauren, you heard it there. It goes all the way across the board. The clocks are set, and we are ready to pick up the count on time for a liftoff here in just under 6 minutes.
And that's, I mean, to be honest, guys, that's exactly what we expect with United Launch Alliance. They've, of course, launched this rocket again 93 times. Tried and true. You know that they're just champing at the bit to be able to, to be able to launch this thing. You know that they've been ready for a long time. So let me answer a few more questions from you guys here before we get into about T-minus 1 minute, in which case I will just zip the lip and listen in. You're welcome, Grafty. This is a good question here from Street Twin Rider. What's the trajectory? So this, of course, again, is going to the International Space Station, which is at a 51.6 degree inclination. So that's 51.6 degrees north, like northeast. So it's going to be going northeast, but actually the rocket only takes off and heads to about 45 degrees northeast, almost exactly 45 degrees. Cool. Starliner is configured for internal count. That's good. And so at that 45 degree angle, it actually helps account for the rotation of the Earth at that 28 degree latitude. If you guys, again, if this type of stuff that I'm talking about confuses you, I have a good video about this too. It's why do cylindrical rockets roll? It kind of talks about why rockets do that roll maneuver. And we get into things like flight azimuths and inclinations and all of these really fun things. I actually really enjoy that video. It cleared up a lot of stuff for me. And soon, in the future, I will do a video, maybe not soon. In the future, I will do a video just all about orbits and all of that stuff. So you guys can just kind of have a one-stop shop for that. Yeah, let's keep going here. Yep, absolutely, Connor M. 2 is better than 1, Team Space. And again, this has already been paid for. So if this fails, it's just bad all around. We're here to cheer it on so that we can have 2 rides to the International Space Station. There we go. Everything's going smoothly still. I love it. Thank you very much, Michael. This is a good question, Thomas. I did a video about launch aborts, and actually, I did a video about should Starship have a launch abort system, and I go through kind of what crew rating means. And crew rating isn't just some like, oh, looks good. It really literally means certifying every single piece of hardware, literally every bolt, every piece of metal, to a higher degree of certification of
Atlas's hydraulic steering system has been pressurized for flight.
cool. Just confirm, you have a margin of a safety factor. Airliners, I believe it's like, I forget now. This is off the top of my head. It's something like 1.5 safety margin. Like, if your wing needs to be able to bend this much, you allow it to go 50% more than that, and test it to 50% more, and certify that it can handle 50% more than its maximum use case. Something like a normal rocket is kind of at the thinnest margins, or in the 1.1 safety margin factor or something. And to crew rate a rocket, every piece of the rocket needs to be to a much higher, like, again, 1.3 or 1.4 degree safety factor, whatever it is. Like, again, I kind of forget all of the numbers on this stuff. Speaking a little off the top of my mind, so sorry if it's not 100% accurate, but it's along those lines. You literally, every piece of the rocket has to be certified to a higher standard, including the engine. And that's the thing. The RS-68 at the heart of the Delta IV Heavy was never intended to be crew rated. And it does some things that are pretty frowned upon, like lighting the sides of the rocket on fire before launch, which I think looks cool, and really it's proven to be reliable and not really an issue, but it might just be scary for those watching, knowing there's humans on top, to see giant flames going up the side of the rocket. Again, I think it's cool, but it's one of those things that they, this is crazy. Speednub, how does it make you feel knowing that some of us use your videos to prep for job interviews? A fluid engineer on a new space rocket. Honestly, I actually hear that quite a bit when I meet people at different places. And actually, I've heard that a few companies use my videos to be able to show to new hires, or show to, the recruiters will show my videos and say, here, watch this before your interview. That's, like, in my opinion, the ultimate compliment. That is what this is all about. That's what my job is to hopefully make this stuff fun and understandable and exciting for people, and help get people, just a legs up on rocket science. All right. So let's see. Let's listen in here.
OC is armed.
We got a lot more questions that I'll get to near the end. So stick around, my friends. We got just over a minute. Let's hope for the best, everybody.
EDS armed and ready means the emergency detection system is now armed.
1
and
minute.
that basically just means
Rob,
that if
report
it
range
detects
status.
something, it will
Range
trigger the
green.
launch abort system on Starliner and fire
54.
automatically. The
PLP
spacecraft
started.
would push itself far up and away from the rocket. We're talking a mile up and a mile out in just a matter of seconds. We certainly don't expect to see that today.
40.
Atlas at flight press.
Thirty.
30 seconds.
Centaur at flight press.
Vehicle's now pressurized for flight.
25.
Status check.
Go Atlas. Go Centaur.
Go Starliner.
All systems are go for liftoff.
Go Starliner. 10, 9,
Here we go.
8, 7, 6, 5,
They got this.
4, 3, 2, 1, and liftoff. Starliner is headed back to space on the shoulders of Atlas, powered by a workforce dedicated to its success.
We have confirmation of a good MET epic timer on Starliner.
That's good.
Atlas executed its roll program.
Already ready is now
Engine
throttling down to
attitude
maintain
put the crew in a
acceptable
heads-up
dynamic
position if
pressure
we
on
had
the
crew
vehicle.
on board today.
So it already did its roll
First
maneuver.
plane throttle down for Atlas in preparation for max Q.
Max Q, maximum dynamic pressure on the vehicle.
Right now, atmospheric forces are the highest Starliner Atlas will face during the uphill climb.
Mach 1, Atlas 5 and Starliner are now supersonic.
So one of the things that's going to be weird is the
Vehicle now
SR.
throttling up.
Up next, in about
Engine
20
response
seconds,
is looking good.
Starliner's 2 solid rocket boosters will run out of fuel and burn out.
And what's interesting is after they burn out, after the solid rocket motors burn out, they actually will stay attached to the Atlas V for a little bit until it's free of the highest amounts of dynamic pressure, until it's okay. There's not enough atmospheric pressure to so it can safely jettison them. So we'll see that here in a second. So you'll see them burn out, and they'll stay attached for a little bit.
Both SRBs.
Good crew module forward link connection.
Artie Humanity is throttling back up to full thrust.
Now that we pass the solid rocket booster burnout, you'll soon see those two solid rocket boosters separate from the vehicle.
So as I mentioned, the SRBs have burnt out at this point, but they're just holding on for a little bit.
Atlas V now weighs just 1/2 of what it did at launch, burning propellant at a rate of 2,800 pounds per second.
It's hard to fathom. It's like a car every second. There we go. Oh, that's cool.
And we have indication of SRB jettison.
That's cool. I love seeing that go through the plume.
Atlas continues to ascend using solely the RD-180 engine. That's about
2 minutes remaining in the booster
850,000
phase of
pounds of
flight.
thrust at sea level.
It's looking good.
RD Humanity is throttling down slightly as expected. Engine response looks good.
Don't forget, this thing burns for a long time, like 4 minutes.
Teams here on the ground confirming Starliner has a good trajectory. We're now 2 minutes and 55 seconds into today's flight, flying at an altitude of 56 kilometers.
Kilometers. Thank you. See, it's a very shallow ascent. 3 minutes. They're not even above the Kármán line
Our
yet?
next
That seems
throttle
crazy.
down will be to control acceleration forces, limit forces on the crew to below 4 Gs. That is safe for an extended period of time.
One minute remaining in this burn. 1 minute to BECO. RD Humanity is now throttling to maintain 3.5 G acceleration on the vehicle.
Isn't that crazy that the first stage can burn that long? The SpaceX, it's normally like 2.5 minutes, maybe like 2:45 for a Falcon 9.
Starliner flying off the east coast at this point at altitude of 80 kilometers now, moving at a rate of 1,187 miles per hour.
It's just passing North Carolina and Virginia off the northeastern seaboard. For those of you watching along the coastline, you might be able to see this launch.
That Discord notification is not me, by the way. And here comes the animation, unfortunately.
We have BECO, booster engine cutoff. We have successful staging. Pre-start on the RL-10s.
There goes the nose cone skirt.
We have ignition on both RL-10s. Centaur's now gone to closed loop steering.
Just passed through several milestones. Teams here on the ground reporting that all are looking good. Ascent cover jettison there. That provided that
And we have
aerodynamic
air
structure to
jettison.
the top of Starliner, protecting the docking equipment during ascent.
And now that Starliner and Centaur are free of the atmosphere, well into the vacuum of space, that aeroskirt has been jettisoned.
Pants in Discord just says that thing is just pooping parts all over the place. It does have a lot of separation events right during stage separation, with the little nose cone jettison thing and the skirt getting popped off there. They do shed a decent amount of extra weight that are just there for aerodynamic considerations. So we got quite a while before this thing gets into orbit.
Now 6 minutes into today's launch, Starliner continuing to accelerate up the North American coast. Everything going smoothly so far. Starliner and Centaur have been ticking through their ascent milestones right on track, including the Booster Sep Separation, Centaur ignition, and aeroskirt jettison. A number of status calls we'll be listening for in the next several minutes, but if all continues to go well, the next major milestone to watch out for is the main engine cutoff, when Starliner will be officially in space.
If you are on the East Coast, I wonder if you could have seen this, actually. It's probably a little too bright still, but if you are in, New York, North Carolina, some of those places where it's flying over, now it looks like it's going towards, like, Nova Scotia and all that stuff, check east, maybe. Might be able to catch it, but I'm guessing it's still way too bright because it's not even dusk yet.
We heard a report from ULA's team. We had a little bit of an overperformance on the booster, but that's a good thing. Centaur is more than capable of adjusting on the fly in its closed-loop performance.
Overperformance on the booster. That's so weird. How does that happen?
Centaur pressures are stable.
Overperformance. Or wait.
Flight control teams are also monitoring the performance of the sublimator on Starliner right now. The sublimator is what is used to control cabin temperatures going up to space and coming home. Normally we use the radiators on the service module, but those are not powered up until we get into orbit.
I feel like I do need to answer the question. Probably a lot of people haven't seen ULA's animation. This is actually, believe it or not, is not a pre-programmed animation. It is actually taking live telemetry from the vehicle and using that to be able to plot where and the attitude and everything of this vehicle in real time. So those thruster firings you see are, actually lined up with real-time telemetry.
Port zone is open.
Okay, the port zone is open. Cool. And just kind of again, there are some launches where you'll always see the entire ascent, depending on the ground tracking. ULA, United Launch Alliance, who is the launch provider for this particular mission, tends to not show the entire upper stage burn. They do have cameras on board, and last time show the cameras afterwards. But you can put your tin hats away or whatever, tinfoil hats away, unless you'd like to keep them on. It would be pretty silly to think that they were, trying to pass this off or something. It is just literally a tool to be able to use, which I prefer over absolutely nothing. It's better than just raw data. It is a good visualization for those of us watching. So the options are either nothing, a blank screen, and data, or this, which represents the data. So I personally prefer this, but you can prefer whatever you want. The only thing that's hidden underneath my clock, by the way, is the time. So if you want me to move that, I don't really think it's that important. It's showing time in seconds. I can move it up a tiny bit if you guys want. But this is the only countdown clock we can actually see right now. I'm not going to mess with it. It's almost into orbit. So the fun thing here, you can see the perigee altitude. That is the lowest point in the orbit, and that's actually going up. So the way that orbits work is in order to raise your orbit on the opposite side. So in order to change your orbit at all, basically up or down, you have to speed up or slow down opposite of where you are in your orbit. So right now it's actually accelerating, and it's raising that orbit. And right now that orbit is actually intersecting the Earth. So it's literally, if they turn off the engines right now, this rocket the spacecraft would go right smack back into the Earth about minus 2,000 kilometers from the surface of the Earth at its lowest point. So they're speeding up, and what that's doing is raising the orbit until it gets out of the Earth and then out of the Earth's atmosphere, and that's how you get into orbit. For those of you that have played Kerbal Space Program, you're probably quite familiar with this.
So far, no reason to think it will be. Starliner currently 153 kilometers above the Pacific Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, and that's about 95 miles.
Andy's saying it's clearly not burning prograde. It's trying to raise its periapsis. Well, the best way to raise your periapsis is burning directly prograde. Now they have a little bit of a lofted where they angle it a little bit, and that's actually to maintain their current apogee. That's because, again, the low thrust of the upper stage. They kind of have to. They basically normally that's why they launch it up so high so it can kind of dip down and then just have plenty of time to be able to do an orbital insertion burn. But this with the dual RL-10s, they can kind of just keep it like this, and that'll maintain its altitude. You'll notice that its altitude is roughly the same. It's actually going slightly down right now, And that's fine, the main altitude, but you got to think of it as almost like, I'm trying to think of a good way to think of this. Yeah, if they put it straight up right now, it would actually not actually get itself into orbit. It needs to continue to speed up. That's the main thing you're trying to do when getting into orbit, is speeding up. And so it's mostly flying prograde, but it does have a little bit of an angle in order to keep itself lofted at this current altitude. Now you'll do, oh, there we go. MECO 1. So that's...
Centaur engines have cut off. RCS is now at 100%
Main engine cut off,
RSL.
right on time. Starliner is in space, but not done with the ascent milestones. Hearing in the room that it was a good main engine cut off. The next milestone that we'll be looking for is launch vehicle separation, when Starliner will separate from Centaur booster and fly on its own.
And that's what's going to matter here.
Even after that happens, we'll have about 15 minutes until our final major milestone in today's ascent, the orbital insertion burn that will raise the perigee, or low point of Starliner's orbit, out of the Earth's atmosphere. So stick with us, we're not done yet. Now 12 minutes and 30 seconds into today's flight.
Everything looking good.
We just heard our Atlas console position report a spacecraft separation for 1450 after launch.
Still about 2 minutes away.
Sweet, that's coming up quickly.
Now, right now, ULA teams are confirming that Centaur is in a good configuration for separation, making sure that all of the pressures in the tanks are stable, and it will be able to conduct a proper disposal burn later.
So you still will do a separate disposal burn.
Flight control teams here in the room are moving to their insertion checklists.
It's quite a long little bit of burn from the Centaur there. You can see its thrusters still firing. Yeah, mixture of
60
ullage.
seconds to spacecraft Sep. Centaur has now achieved its separation attitude.
Just under a minute now to go until the launch vehicle separation. The team here on the ground reporting that Starliner and Centaur are both ready for it, in the right orientation and on a stable trajectory.
So it does appear they're slightly raising their altitude ever so slightly by firing the thrusters right now. And then
30 seconds to Starliner separation.
After spacecraft separation, after orbital insertion, the Centaur upper stage will basically turn around and deorbit itself. Even at 70 kilometers,
Centaur is holding attitude for Starliner separation.
Question is, why are they
10 seconds to separation
doing a disposal burn when it's going to be at 70 kilometers, which is still, which is basically more or less, below the Kármán line, so below space. It would probably do a couple of orbits.
And we have confirmation of Starliner separation.
Okay, now no crazy spacecraft stuff.
And Starliner is flying alone on its way to orbit. Confirm good LV separation. Thanks, ULA, for a smooth ride to space, and thank you, Dylan, for your help on that ascent commentary.
Again, launch vehicle separation. Good launch vehicle separation. That's what we want to hear.
With that milestone behind us, the next one we'll be watching for is that orbital insertion burn. That is going to raise the perigee, or the low point of Starliner's orbit, out of the Earth's atmosphere, putting it in space for its full orbit. That's an important milestone to reach. It's going to be a 45-second burn. It'll change Starliner's velocity about 85 meters per second, or 190 miles per hour. And that's going to be coming up at the 31-minute mark in today's orbit. We're now just under 16 minutes into today's flight, so still about 15 minutes to go for that.
We got to give mad props, of course, to ULA right away. Good job, ULA. We expect nothing less at this point other than a flawless mission. So they, of course, just hit it right on the nose there. So let's answer a few more questions because we have a decent amount of time here before before this. So I did see a question. I would like to try to find it, but I might have to just get to it when we get to it. This is an important thing here. This is an important thing to point out, is that Starliner can boost the ISS's orbit, which Dragon cannot. This is one of the reasons why Starliner is important. What do they say here?
We have more of them on during power descent, but we don't need some of those right now, so flight controllers are powering some of those down. But some other things that are powering on include those propulsion line heaters. When in the vacuum of space and in the Earth's shadow, it gets quite cold, around -2.
Okay, I'll keep reading here. So yeah, that is currently a thing that the Progress vehicle can do from Roscosmos. I believe. Remind me, guys. I'm not remembering right now if Northrop Grumman's Cygnus capsule can do a ISS boost. I don't think it can, because it bursts to the wrong port. So I believe the Starliner is the only U.S. vehicle currently that could do an orbital raise in its current configuration. I don't doubt that if SpaceX had to, add something to one of the crew cargo vehicles to be able to do that, like an additional bit of hardware in the trunk or something, that they probably could if they absolutely had to. But this is a capability that Starliner has. Yeah. Let's see. This is a good question from Dusty Baker, #heterochromia. Thank you. I don't know if that means you're also a fellow heterochromomaniac or not, but thank you for the hashtag. Do you think new startups like SpaceX, Firefly, Rocket Lab have a better shot at success than legacy companies that are publicly traded? So there actually are no legacy companies that are better shot than legacy companies that are publicly traded. There really aren't any publicly traded legacy companies in the direct launch, because ULA, although kind of, sort of, not really, it is, the child of Boeing and Lockheed Martin is what ULA is. And both of those, I believe, are publicly traded. I actually don't know if Lockheed Martin's public. I assume it is. I assume Lockheed's publicly traded. Of course, Boeing is. But other than that, legacy spaceflight, I don't. Is Northrop Grumman publicly traded? Probably. The point is, some of these now are publicly traded. Rocket Lab's publicly traded. Astra's publicly traded through SPACs. So I don't know if it really has anything to do with companies that are publicly traded. More so, like you said, kind of the legacy company aspect. Can a legacy company really compete with these new startups? There's stuff. Man, that's a loaded question in my opinion, because of course there's a lot of things that legacy aerospace can pull from, a lot of knowledge, and that's what's funny actually is, in a certain sense, there tends to be a certain amount of like arrogance, I'll call it, but not really. It's just sort of playing around with new space companies where they'll try things that had been tried in the 60s and kind of think that maybe if they try it in a slightly different way, they'll get different results than NASA did in the 50s and 60s. And frankly, interesting. I don't know if that was supposed to be on screen. Hopefully none of that was ITAR sensitive. But there's certain things that NASA and the U.S. Air Force and all these companies went through the absolute ringer in the 50s and 60s, testing everything. And so there's a lot of things that if a company's not paying attention to what had been done, they can waste a ton of money just trying things that are very well known in the industry to just not work. And that's where some of that legacy aerospace really does pull from that knowledge base and pulls from, there's sort of there can be a leg up there because they've always kind of known what does and does not work. Now, because of that, I feel like there also can be a limitation, is that they're not feeling like they're going to be exploring as much. They're not going to be trying new things. And, sometimes that arrogance of like trying something, that had been tried 100 times and we know this doesn't work. Sometimes people will get smart and figure something out, So the biggest thing that I think the new space companies have that some of the traditional ones don't is they're working on such a limited budget. They're not getting these big, giant, multi-billion-dollar contracts from the United States government. They're working on hundreds of millions of dollars, and they need to trim off all of the pork imaginable in order to even survive. So a lot of these startups companies are just like, they're, putting things together just at a scale and at a price that just was unfathomable before, because it's the only way they can operate. And because of that, you just kind of inherently get a company that's a little bit more, savvy, I guess. Yeah. Kevin Michael Reed, thank you for becoming a member. Don't forget, of course, all members and Patreon supporters do get previews to upcoming videos. That's always been what we do on this channel, and I actually use that as quality control. So you'll actually be the ones, if you're someone that likes to comment on YouTube videos, you said this when you actually should have said this, or if you're like, hey, there was an error, the audio glitch, blah, blah, this time. If you're one of those people that likes to comment, then you'll love being a Patreon member because you actually get you could be the first people to actually comment that, which then means I can see it before it launches, before I release a video. I can see that feedback and make changes to videos before they become public. So I always have used Patreon and YouTube members as a quality control for the videos that I release, which of course means upcoming videos such as the remaining 3 parts of the Elon Musk conversation that I had recently. Those will of course be released to supporters ahead of time.
We'll just put Starliner into its thrust align mode. Once again, just making sure that Starliner is pointed exactly at the right attitude for that orbital insertion burn. It's going to hold that attitude.
Yep, cool. We still got a little ways here. Cole, this is a good question. What engine cycle does the Atlas V have? So it has 2 engines, of course. Well, it kind of has 3. I mean, it has solid rocket boosters on the core stage. I didn't even talk about those in the engine cycles because they're not a liquid. But the Atlas V's main engine is the RD-180, which is oxygen-rich closed cycle. And then the upper stage uses the expander cycle on the RL-10, which is a really cool solution to rocket engines. And that's why it's considered one of the most efficient engines. It's definitely a little underpowered, but it is an awesome engine. So, yeah. Let's see. This is Iron. Is there going to be part 2 of the Spring Starbase tour? Of course. Remember, in the first 30 seconds I stay tuned because we'll take you up the tower. We'll do a tour of the Raptors. We'll do a tour of the Merlin engine. Of course, there's part 2, 3, and 4 coming up. Part 2 will hopefully be coming out next week. Still editing that, actually, believe it or not. Trying to just make sure everything's perfect for you guys. Yeah. Ooh, this is awesome. This is Patrick Krebs celebrating 18 months of membership. Always excited to watch your stream. Thanks for all your great work. Well, thank you so much, Patrick. I really appreciate that. Let's see here. This is from Omaz, 2021. Oh, Suni Williams. Awesome. Omaz, why don't they install retro rockets on the Centaur? Wouldn't it be more efficient as the second stage is fully drained? Well, the question... Yeah, it's easy to think of it this way. If you put something on, like, say, a retro rocket that maybe gets 250 seconds of specific impulse, so kind of think of that as like gas mileage or fuel economy. If you have something that, say, gets 250 seconds of specific impulse because it's just kind of a, cruddy solid rocket booster versus, say, using the RL-10, which gets 450 seconds of specific impulse, you're much better off just actually refiring the RL-10 to be able to do a burn, as opposed to using anything that gets a lower specific impulse or adding extra weight and extra casings and extra things to be able to do that. Why not use the hardware that's already there? That's the general consensus, is that it's actually more efficient to use the most efficient engine at all times. Let's see here. Blame Techie says 22 months of membership. Thank you very much. That's one of the higher memberships I've ever seen, actually. Thanks for all you do. Question, how much of the first stage can ULA reuse? None on the Atlas V. Now, the upcoming Vulcan rocket, they're planning to utilize and bring online smart reuse, which is the idea that they're going to detach the engine section from the fuselage or from the main tanks, and then they're going to have an inflatable heat shield on it and then swoop it out of the sky with a helicopter, much like Rocket Lab is working on with their Electron rocket. Pretty cool. Obviously, the engines take up by far the most they're by far the most expensive part of the rocket. So you might as well definitely go to try to recover those engines and reinstall them on another rocket. It's an interesting solution because it does allow them to utilize the entire performance of the vehicle. You don't have to, save any fuel in order to do, say, a boost back burn or a reentry burn or a landing burn. They're able to utilize the full performance of the vehicle by detaching the engines after main engine cutoff. So it's an interesting concept. We'll see if it works out, and I hope it does, because I'm all about reusing hardware. That's, yeah, definitely cool. Pizak also celebrating 12 months of membership, showing off your membership. Thank you so much. That is awesome. Let's see. This is a Space Geek. In the abort test, a massive amount of hydrazine was released. How is this allowed, and what if the capsule is downwind from the toxic cloud? Obviously, so inside the capsule, you're in a sealed environment. So obviously, whenever an abort system is used on either the Starliner or SpaceX's Crew Dragon capsule, hydrazine will be released, which is extremely toxic. It's part of the bipropellant hypergolic system. It's hydrazine and then hydrazine and N2O4, nitrogen tetroxide. There we go, which is the oxidizer. So both of them will inevitably have toxic smoke as you're using that launch abort system, and even as you're orienting the rocket or the spacecraft in an abort scenario. And even when the Starliner lands, nominally, it lands on land, and the first thing they have to do is approach the vehicle with a sensor to make sure it is safe. They have to do that same thing with Crew Dragon. They have to approach the vehicle with a sensor that smells for hydrazine until it is safe to open the hatch and get crew, even the recovery crew, anywhere near the vehicle. Yeah, it's toxic, yes, of course. The crew is safe inside the capsule. It's not like it's sitting there recycling air from the outside, because obviously if it's in space, you can't do that. They also are sealed up inside their spacesuits. They do have 2 layers of protection there as far as breathing in toxic hydrazine. The astronauts on board are about as safe as you can get from that, actually. Double redundant there, so, or at least single redundancy, I should say. Yeah, so that's if it's downwind from the toxic cloud, you just wait, and then actually the first crew that arrives on the ground side does have, they have full hazmat suits, and they can just spray it down. Water actually neutralizes hydrazine, so just spraying it down, letting the rest of it waft off into the air, blah blah blah. Give it a couple minutes, and you should be good to go. So, yeah, okay. This is from Cole Smith. I can't confirm this, but this sounds about right. ULA basically said they did reverse engineer it on account of just working with it so much. I think because they have an agreement with Russia, it keeps bonds together to just use Russia's RD-180s. As far as why didn't the U.S. just reverse engineer the RD-180? Okay. Let's see. This is from Boss Sev 38. What is the highest orbit that Starliner Crew Dragon can reach? Well, Starliner, I don't know of any plans to ever go above the International Space Station, which is 400 kilometers. Whereas Crew Dragon has already gone beyond that with Inspiration 4, 2 minutes away from orbital insertion. So it's a 45-second burn. So we'll definitely listen in when we get to the orbital insertion burn. But Crew Dragon will be going much higher. It's actually going to exceed the highest orbit on an elliptical orbit compared to the Gemini mission. So this will be the highest any humans will have gone since the Apollo program. When the Polaris program happens, the first mission for Polaris will take Crew Dragon higher than it ever has before. I don't remember the exact number, so I don't really want to say it. It's in the thousands of kilometers instead of hundreds, which is really exciting. So, this is from Dragons. Do you think you will be alive to see the beginning of a Mars habitat? What gets me most excited? So, I mean, a Mars habitat. Frankly, the first crew that lands on Mars will need to have a habitat. So assuming that humans go to Mars and they get there safely and they're able to set up station, they have to stay there for about a year before you can be in alignment with a return to Earth. So I do think, I personally think I will see humans step foot on Mars in my lifetime. I'm currently 7? I don't remember. 37. I think by the time I'm 50, that should happen. I've hoped for 2030, but let's listen to this.
To control, they're going to fire for 45 seconds.
Actually, I'll finish that question though. What gets me most excited? Honestly, what gets me most excited is just seeing spaceflight become normal and seeing new and exciting things get up into space, more and more people getting up into space, and that cost coming down. So maybe someday the average human being could actually go live and work in space. That's what gets me excited. I just think it's a future to look forward to. And as the cost lowers, we can do more and more exploration missions, getting bigger and more incredible spacecraft out into space to make new discoveries about our place amongst the stars. That's personally what gets me quite excited. But let's listen in here.
Orbital insertion burn starting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Again, this burn is going to last for 45 seconds. Teams here on the ground reporting 4 good, Orbital
Why are
maneuvering
thrusters firing
and
forward?
attitude control thrusters.
Maybe they do that to actually orient it, honestly. Maybe those are less powerful than the ones behind
now,
us.
the
They
colors
use
you're
that to
seeing
steer.
on those jets, or you were seeing on those jets, they indicate which integrated propulsion controller those jets are mapped to. We have 3 IPCs.
I should mention here real quick that thrusters like that can only do impulses. They can't actually throttle, at least the lower throttle.
One.
There we go.
And
That's
we
what
have
we like to see.
OI cutoff.
That's what we like to see. Slight drift, which I can null out here right now.
And
Couple little.
And we have confirmation from Flight Director Mike Lammers. We have a good orbital insertion burn. Starliner is in a stable circular orbit on its way to the International Space Station.
Sweet. There we go. That's how you do it.
Now, this was a big hurdle to get through early on. We have a few demos to go on our way to the ISS. And then after that, hopefully a very good docking. But so far today, good launch, great performance from ULA. Atlas even gave us a little bit more of a push than we needed, but Centaur was able to adjust accordingly, place Starliner exactly where we needed it. And we have confirmation of a good OI burn. Once again, Starliner is in orbit, heading to the ISS.
It's a major milestone to get behind us, but it is really just the beginning. We've got a number of demonstrations now that Starliner will have to go through ahead of its International Space Station arrival.
So let me again I was starting to explain this, but you were seeing that some thrusters were firing forward while other thrusters were firing backwards. That might seem weird, but keep in mind that thrusters like that, like I was trying to say, they can't really throttle. Instead, you do impulses. So you actually just kind of go like turn them on and off in only like dozens of milliseconds or maybe hundreds. I mean, I think it's like dozens of milliseconds is how quickly. Actually, I think it can get down to like 5 milliseconds or something if I remember right. It is like they can go like crazy, just do these little impulses. And what happens is, I'm guessing in order to go pro grade like that, they're firing the 4 main thrusters forward and then using just little impulses on the front to maintain orientation and to be able to, tilt it in the right way.
Orbital insertion checklist. We have confirmation good radiator activation. So those radiators are now in control and controlling the thermal environment inside the cabin.
All right, I'll keep going here with some questions because, there's quite a bit of wait time here, and I want to get through a decent amount of questions, and I want to head out to dinner now that we're seeing this thing looking good. Slowbird, have my 3rd interview at Sierra Space soon. Wish me luck. Hey, everyone in chat, please say good luck to Slowbird. That would be awesome. Sierra Space would be very cool. It'd be very cool to see the Dream Chaser actually, to be able to work on Dream Chaser. That'd be super cool. So, yeah. Good luck, Slowbird. Super cool. Nick Foskett says, could/will Boeing make specialized capsules the way they make highly customized aircraft for airlines in countries like Qatar? I don't think so. I think, in general, the interior is, at this point, I don't see Starliner having too much of a life outside of sending crew up to the International Space Station for NASA. There could potentially be some private missions, but I don't see it being customized and stuff like that. I think the main customer is going to be NASA. I think it's going to be pretty purpose-built. I don't foresee it being completely outfitted with different kit like we might see on their aircraft. Yeah, cool. So they're actually signing off already.
Starliner on its way. Gary?
Hey, thanks, Brandy and Josh. It is so great to see Starliner in a good orbit and heading for the International Space Station. Teams here in the Space Station Flight Control Room will be monitoring Starliner.
Yeah, they're getting ready to sign off. I'll stick around and answer the rest of these questions we have here, guys. But, yeah. Okay, this is from Oshisakana. Sorry if I totally, absolutely ruined that. Tim, please make a video about orbital dynamics. Vehicles actually stealing energy from the bodies they orbit to speed. What? Your stage combustion videos made me actually understand engine cycles. Yes, I will be doing a video about orbits, and I'll make sure and include things like slingshots and all these different things, and inclinations and descending nodes, ascending nodes, all of the things that you kind of hear when you're trying to learn about orbits. That's definitely a good video topic that I'm hoping to get to this year. This year, I'm trying to do a lot of these kind of, I don't want to call them beginner guides to rockets, because I think that's kind of a bit insulting, because they're quite deep dives. They're really quite deep dives, but maybe more of like a complete guide to rocket science. Is what I'm trying to do. That's what I'm doing. Like, why don't rocket engines melt? To give you a sense of how you keep rocket engines cool. The engine cycles, how you power rocket engines. We want to do one on starting up rocket engines next, or close to next. There might be a few more coming out before then. The Elon interviews, and also a van build video. That's going to be really fun, actually. Yeah, they're totally signing out already, which again will mean I'll keep answering questions. Yeah, they're saying the thank you, and maybe while they're saying the thank yous, we should do a quick thank everyone in chat. Just say, I know some of you this might hurt to do for some reason. It shouldn't. It just should feel good, especially if you paid taxes and paid for this launch. Congratulations, Boeing. Huge congratulations to Boeing. This is looking fantastic so far. Really excited to have another crew vehicle capable of getting humans to the ISS. That's what we want. At least that's what I want. So yeah, huge congratulations, Boeing, NASA, United Launch Alliance knocked it out of the park. Fingers crossed that the rest of the mission goes well. I think they've got a good handle on things. Everything looks fantastic so far. So if you guys can, drop a quick congrats. Just something to feel good. We can come together on this and congratulate people that have worked hard. Don't forget, there are people that are out there working on these vehicles that have worked extremely hard. And whether or not it's your favorite rocket and your favorite spacecraft, it doesn't really matter. It's fun to watch people do cool things, in my opinion. So, all right, they are definitely signing off. So, congratulations to NASA. And again, while you guys have you here, before I answer the rest of these questions, if you guys do, again, 10% off today of the RS-25 shirt, go to everydayastronaut.com/shop. And at checkout, just use coupon code LaunchDay. All one word, all lowercase. Get 10% off of the RS-25 shirt and the normal hat as well. So if you guys do some shopping, helps support me, helps me continue to do what I do. This is stuff that I can't wait for you guys to see what's coming out here. We have a photo shoot at the end of the month for a few new items as well. So maybe hold off if you're wanting to shop. I'm going to just be honest. Maybe don't shop today. There's actually a good amount of things coming out here in the near future that I think you might want to hold off on. Including our dress wear and hopefully soon, depending on what's happening in China, our parts for our model rockets will be coming out. So hopefully that all happens relatively soon. So of course, again, thank you for those of you that support what I do, and you can continue to do that too at patreon.com/everydayastronaut. And so thank you to my Patreon supporters and all of you who are YouTube members as well. And don't forget, next week you'll be getting the review video for the next Elon interview as well. And there'll be a handful of other things coming out here soon that you guys will get to check out. But yeah, let's see. We've still got more questions to answer. There's actually a good queue, so stick around. I got a decent amount of time here, so let's try and bang some of these out here. This is a good question from Go for Launch 13. How can the vehicle abort at any time of launch? So a full abort launch window is basically saying on the pad, if the rocket's fully fueled and something happens and they need to pull the vehicle off of the rocket, the spacecraft off of the rocket, it can do that from the ground. As soon as it lifts off, if at 5 seconds something happens, it can pull away there. Even later into space, all it has to be able to do is get away from the rocket, right? If something happens to the launch vehicle, say you have a sudden explosion of the booster stage or the upper stage, or say a failed separation of the solid rocket boosters or something, being able to basically they just separate from the upper stage, and then depending on where they're at in the mission, they'll either fire those RS-88s, bantam motors. If you need a lot of thrust to be able to get away, or later portions of the flight, they actually just use the orbital maneuvering thrusters. There's some more powerful ones compared to just the little tiny ones, but those also are capable of just getting it away from a failing spacecraft. And the good thing is, most of the time, with as many sensors as there are on rockets, most of the time if something goes wrong, they actually just shut the engine down. Like it's quite rare to have a stage blow up. So for the most part, what they need to be able to do is orient the vehicle and get it to a safe place to be able to re-enter and be able to do get the crew back safely. Like that's the main thing. It's not necessarily about people think an abort system is there to like outrun the explosion, like the Millennium Falcon shooting out through the flame, In some cases that could maybe happen, but really it's mostly about getting the vehicle into a safe position, a safe attitude, and be able to keep the crew in control and detached from the failed vehicle. That's like the main thing that abort systems are for. Obviously in lower, while you're still in the atmosphere, while you're still on the ground, getting away and getting high. The main thing there is getting high enough to be able to deploy the parachutes. That's like the whole reason you basically have an abort system on the launch pad, is to get the rocket or the vehicle far enough away from a failed rocket and high enough up to be able to deploy your parachutes so they can splash down safely. So that's pretty much the main thing the abort system is actually used for. Not necessarily, again, like trying to run away from a failed launch or something. Grafty, they lit it and it was fantastic. Let's see, from Mondo, this is a good question. How long will the flight take to arrive to the ISS? It's about 24 hours. They'll be kind of slowly approaching the ISS. It's pretty typical of Crew Dragon does about 24-hour missions most of the time. I think they did a quicker one more recently here. But they tend to be about 24 hours. So, yeah, and that's just kind of the way that NASA does things. Soyuz, on the other hand, has done one in like 3 hours. Or did they do a 90-minute one? I don't remember. 3 hours, though, I think is like the quick version for Soyuz, which is nuts. I can't even imagine. We do need a flamey end check, go, no go. I did not do a pointy end up flamey end down, and things somehow went perfectly fine. So maybe that confused them last time. Maybe someone on mission control was like, oh yeah, and they accidentally, I don't know. Maybe it's not good luck after all. This is a good question from Emma. Emma is also in our Discord. This is from our Discord channel. Oh wait, is this not showing up? Sorry, I realize you guys aren't seeing any of our things. Hold on. Let me make sure you're seeing our chats here. Emma was asking, I don't know if this will pop back up. This is not load and launch like Falcon. So the Falcon, they actually get humans on it, then they load it up with fuel, and then they launch it. Starliner is the opposite. They will come to the vehicle while it's already in a safe state with liquid oxygen on board and RP1 on board the vehicle, and including liquid hydrogen as well on the upper stage, and then they load the crew on. And to me, in my mind, that actually seems just more dangerous. I mean, in general, once you're done loading a vehicle, it's in a very, safe space. It's in a steady state. But you do have, high pressure COPVs and you have a lot of propellant right there. It is strange to me that that's considered normal. And NASA was actually concerned about a load and go process for Crew Dragon. So, yeah. All right, let's keep going here. Paul, hold on. Oh, here we go. Sorry. You made my life a lot better and made me way too obsessed with rocket science. My name is Mason. That is awesome. Thank you, Mason, for watching, getting excited. That's what this is all about. And again, not to rant on you guys or anything, but especially even today, as much as ever, I feel like it's just important to remember the humanity in all of us, and me and you and anyone watching this and anyone that you live next to or interact with or work with or friends and family. This is something to look forward to. This is something to cheer for and celebrate is spaceflight. It's literally humans like trying to push the boundaries and get out there and explore and answer the great questions about where we are in the universe and learn things about ourselves and about our species, our planet, our solar system, our universe, in ways that I think just benefit everyone here on Earth. So, for me, this is great. This is important, and it's just pushing the boundaries of human capability, and that's always space flight and things like Formula One are exciting to me for those same reasons. As far as just engineering, raw engineering, pushing the boundaries, harder, faster, better. How can you not get excited about that? So, Yeah, thank you so much for saying hi, Mason. John, you got 17 months of membership. Thank you so much for saying hi. And also from Paul, a cup of coffee. Thank you so much. A tip from Felipe. Thank you so much. Sergio, thank you for becoming a member. Toby C. Ghost Islander. She's a pretty little skiff, and a lot of people applied their excellence to it. See, again, that's what I have to imagine. I actually know people that have worked directly on Starliner. I know people that work directly with Orion. I know people that work directly on Crew Dragon. I know people that work directly on New Shepard. I mean, I'm not trying to show off the people that I know, but, talking to any one of these people, they're so excited about the work they're doing. And it really hurts when things don't go well. I've talked to people on the phone immediately, the day after a major failure, and it's hard. Can you imagine working on something for months or years and having it not go well? You put your blood, sweat, and tears, and you pour your heart into a project. Of course, you want for them, you want for us, you want things to go well. So there are a lot of people that worked very hard to make this mission go well, and I'm glad to see it has been going. So from I believe this is from Mason again. Will I do a video about my life? Everyone wants it. I don't think everyone wants a video about my life. You hear plenty of talk about myself from myself during these streams. Come on. You will kind of get a little bit more just like behind the scenes, go with the flow. I'm not going to say vlog, but vlog-esque video, and you guys might hate it, and that's fine. I'm sure you'll tell me about it. But we're going to give you we're working on a video about how we're building out a production van. So a van so we can go see, things like the upcoming Falcon Heavy launch. That will be awesome. We have SLS coming up. We have Starship coming up. We have, things like Firefly and Astra and all these other launches coming from all across the United States. We want to be able to produce 4K quality, or at least the absolute highest quality videos we can, which again is, of course, couldn't be doing it without all of you wonderful people watching and supporting. So we did a video, we recorded ourselves building out this news van, basically, this production van. It's definitely way more just like chill and casual and just, kind of shooting the stuff as we build it out. We'll see how the edit goes. If it's fun to watch, I'll post it. Worst case scenario, might only go up on Patreon because I don't want to, I don't know. I think it's fun. We'll put it up on the main channel, hopefully, assuming the feedback comes back well from Patreon supporters and YouTube members. If you guys like it and think it should go on the main channel, then we'll do it. But I also don't want to clutter your main channel with things that aren't directly related to spaceflight and rocket science. And this is kind of on the edge of that. I mean, it is a van purpose-built to watch rocket launches, and there's some kind of fun little engineering solutions that we came up with and things that we're excited to work on with that, but I don't know. We'll see. It was fun nonetheless. It's fun to do that kind of stuff. Thank you very much, Daddy Beef. Who does my taxes? A local tax professional. And again, thank you, Mason, for becoming a member. This is from Captain Chris 1220. I get goosebumps when I hear the crackling of motors. I don't know if you guys have in chat. Let me know if you guys have seen a rocket launch in person, and I'm more curious about hearing it. If you felt and heard a rocket launch in person, say yes, I have seen a rocket launch in real life, or no, I haven't. I'm just curious. It's amazing. I mean, I do have to say that's still one of those moments that could potentially change your life, is just being able to witness a rocket launch. They're so fun. Let's see. This is a good question from Jimmy Thomas. Why does the plume have this very specific shape? Ooh, lots of yeses. A lot of yeses in chat. Some no's, but a lot of yeses. Okay, why does the plume have this very specific shape? Looks like it's split in half. That's a great question because there's two nozzles. The RD-180 that powers the Atlas V has dual nozzles, and both of those nozzles, the plumes interact, and where those plumes interact, it kind of makes this weird, wall of exhaust that is dividing those two nozzles. So that's why you kind of see that weird little plume shape. It's a little unique, and it's so far, I can only think of the RD-180 that kind of looks like that. But yeah, that's why. Nate, is there any chance I can interview Tori Bruno? Absolutely. We've tried I kind of have Scott Manley syndrome when it comes to Tori Bruno, where whenever I'm somewhere, I if I'm going out to Colorado, I ask his team if he's available, and or vice versa. It just seems like we're never at the same place at the same time. I definitely would love to do that. That man's worked on some incredible projects, and he's got a lot of cool stuff going on with Vulcan. So I would love to pick his brain. So speaking of that, Cody, too bad the rocket isn't reusable. I mean, again, I love that this is something we complain about now, that a rocket isn't reusable, when coming out 6.5 years ago, it was completely like unheard of to have a reusable booster like this, outside of the space shuttle, which, say what you will, was reusable. But yeah. All right. This is Technician B. Thank you so much. This is from Mason. What jobs do you have? And also, how do you not have a job at SpaceX or NASA? This is my only job. My only job, you're seeing it. My job is, when people ask me, what do you do? I say, I teach rocket science on YouTube. And I have to say that loosely because it's definitely not like academia per se. I'm not like a licensed educator or anything, but this is just my passion. And this is my full-time job. It's beyond a full-time job. And we have a small team of people, a small army of people that help make this stuff all possible. Again, the website crew keeps the website going. They're self-sustaining. They do their thing. I just let them go, and that's amazing because I don't have time for that. But yeah, my job, and the thing that I want to keep in mind is I want to do whatever makes me happy, whatever I like to do. And for me, I'm finding that I enjoy making videos that help someone understand something that they have not been able to understand before. There's a lot of videos out there. There's a lot of amazing creators that produce phenomenal content. I mean, there's teams out there that make daily, weekly, semi-weekly, whatever videos all the time about all the progress and news. And that's extremely important. I don't have I couldn't do that. I get lost. Like, I used to try to do that a little bit kind of back in the, not really. I never really have done like the news cycle thing like that, besides our Ludicrous Future podcast, kind of. But I just don't, there's other people that do that way better, and they pay way more attention to every little tiny little thing. I like to try to break things down. I like to try to make things, I like to try to learn things that are way too complicated for myself to understand, learn it as best I can, and then try to digest it and make it, help you understand the things that kind of made my little light bulb go, oh, bing, I got it. That's what I like to do. The other thing, secret little trick, people, ask me like, why aren't you streaming this launch, or why aren't you blah, blah, blah. The only reason I really stream on site, it really has, I hate to say this, kind of has nothing to do with you guys. It's because I want to see these launches. That's the honest truth. Like, I want to see these launches. I'm there. I want to try to bring you to them. I want to help you, experience it from my perspective as best as I possibly can. I think I've done a good job in the past. There's been some launches that have done an awesome job of bringing you guys those things. There's some launches that I haven't done an awesome job of bringing you guys along with me. But I think we're making progress on making it more reliable, more fun, and bringing you along in a way that's should be really, really fun. Like, I think what we have planned should be able to really bring you guys along to rocket launches like never before, and just give you this perspective and it's just going to be fun. And that's what's important to me. So why don't I have a job at SpaceX or NASA? Because I couldn't do this. And to me, this is what's important. I just really enjoy this. Sorry, that was a long rant. Baby Rocket loves you and prepares a surprise for you. I don't know. That's kind of weird. But thank you, Baby Rocket. Again, thank you, Mason/Paul. This is like, I'm confused why these are like, why are you super chatting this? I love what I do. What the cool thing is, what I do, I can talk about whoever I want. I can talk about whatever I want, whenever I want. I don't have to get permission from people per se. I can pursue whatever weird little projects I want. Yeah. Okay, this is from Silence Do Good. Do I have a video to watch on perigee and apogee stuff you were discussing? I am confused still. So that's one of those things I really need to make a video just on orbits, how orbits work, why they're, what perigee and apogee are. That's a video I will definitely prepare that will be like after, I think we'll do why rocket engines, or how you start a rocket engine injectors, And then I think it's time for orbits. That's such a video that people want all the time. So, yeah. Again, from Wayne Cram, periapsis. So, technically, periapsis is the general term for perigee. So, perigee is actually specific only to Earth. There's perihelion around the sun and aphelion. There's, I forget what it is on the moon. Periluna or something. I don't remember. But yeah, there's perigee and periapsis and apoapsis is the generic term meaning highest and lowest points of an orbit. 35 months of membership. Okay, I think that's the highest I've seen. 35 months, almost 3 years. Is Dragon not capable of boosting the ISS because of its lack of capability? Or is it just because of the docking location they tend to use? It does not actually have the capability. Its main Draco thrusters are really cantered out quite a bit. You'd have a lot of cosine losses, meaning they're slanted at quite a high angle. It would not be great for boosting the ISS. There's not a lot of delta V it can impart, as opposed to Boeing actually has thrusters that fire straight on. They can fire the vehicle straight prograde, so it can help boost the ISS very efficiently. The Super Dracos or Dracos aren't very powerful for boosting, and Super Dracos are too powerful. So the Dragon doesn't really have boosting capabilities because of that. This is Steven. Do you think SpaceX will beat Discovery's record of the most reused space vehicle rocket in history? I think they eventually can with Starship. I don't think Falcon 9 or Crew Dragon will ever beat Discovery's record, which is 37 or 39 missions. I don't see that happening with Dragon or with Falcon 9. I could be wrong. Falcon's already gone way beyond what SpaceX originally thought, which was 10 reuses. They're now at 13 on some of their vehicles, some of their rockets, but I just don't quite see getting to the high 30s. But yeah. Let's see. D-Pod Dolphin. Am I going to see Psyche in August? I'm flying over to cover the mission for tomorrow. Ooh, that's awesome. Very cool. Yeah, that's actually one I would love to see. And I didn't realize that was coming up in the manifest next until today. And then I realized, and Psyche's one that will have a dual booster landing. So yeah, I gotta see that, right? I mean, come on. That's awesome. So yeah, I will. And then I'll see you there, because that sounds awesome. Let's see. King of Dongles. I'm assuming engineer about Rocketdyne and learn a lot about our own products through your videos. Keep up with the good work. Well, thank you so much, King of Dongles. That's awesome. That really means a lot. That means I'm hopefully doing something right. Dusty Baker. I am studying software engineering. Can you do a video on the software of rockets from Apollos to modern rockets? I am a heterochromaniac, by the way. That's weird. I did not think there are going to be that many people that are heterochromatic, which for those of you that don't know what that is, that means you have different colored eyes. You probably can't really tell. I forget about it all the time, but I do actually have different colored eyes. They're just one's darker and one's lighter. Not a big deal. But actually the software on rockets is something that is hard to really dive into, because a lot of that does start to get into ITAR sensitive, so International Treaty of Arms and Regulations. It can be, that can be something that's actually relatively hard to talk about, and that's way outside my expertise. Way outside. A better person for that would definitely be Scott Manley, who is an actual software engineer. If he hasn't done a good video on software engineer and guidance, it probably means no one can, because, like I said, that's just like, yeah. Let me just keep going here. I'm just going to fly through these so I can go eat. Happy Home, thank you for becoming a member. And William Reschk, thank you for becoming a member. James Bramlett, high term dirt. Oh, man. My store RUDs. There will be more RUDs coming up. The RUDs are rapid unscheduled discounts, I think is what we called it. But yeah, we do have the RUDs sections as well. Rapid unscheduled discounts. Yeah. We will have more things coming up in the RUDs soon. So, mind a shout out to my baby cakes, please. 2-year-old nephew's parents both work for Boeing in Seattle. That's awesome. Well, shout out to baby cakes. By the way, I just heard the Discord thing in my headphones. Somehow I'm still getting notifications. So it was me all along. I don't see where. Like, everything's shut off. I don't get it. I'm scared and sad and confused. Jesse Bear 2115. Did you see the study on SpaceX rockets' launch frequency causing major upper atmosphere disturbances and destroying the ozone? Bunk science or true? I did a video on exactly that topic. We didn't quite dive too much into the ozone layer, but that is definitely a concern. I have not seen that particular study. That is a concern, and I'm curious about it. So I would love to see that, actually, because, yeah, it'd be a good follow-up for me, having studied the pollution of rockets and what environmental impact your rockets have. I'd be very curious about that. If anyone in Discord has a link to that, please shoot that to me. I would be very curious. Thank you, Spurgear. I'm not sure what that means, but thank you. Gary Wiseman, thank you very much for the tip. Richard, thank you for becoming a member. This one's from DJ with 16 months of membership. Awesome. I'm using your videos to design a rocket engine for my career thesis. Wow. Thank you so much, Tim. You rock. Dang, would not use my videos to design a rocket engine, but I'm glad that hopefully I'm helping. Hopefully, if anything, I would be studying. I think Copenhagen Suborbitals has some really good videos about the rocket engines that they're developing. They do an awesome job of bringing us along for the ride. So definitely check out Copenhagen Suborbitals YouTube channel. Is awesome. Huge shout out to those guys over there doing some crazy stuff on a shoestring budget, because it's quite literally crowdfunded. They're trying to send humans to suborbital space via crowdfunding. It's insane, and it's really, really cool. So best of luck, DJ. That's awesome. How do spacecraft radars work for thermal control? Thank you, True Style. So they work just as they sound. They radiate. So radiating is we're so used to around here, like, on Earth, things being convectively cooled. So we run a fan over a radiator, and poop, the air takes some of the thermal energy away, right? It actually removes heat by running a fresh stream of air over it. In space, you obviously can't do that. So the only thing you can do is basically just have a lot of surface area and a good thermal conductor, and run liquid, and just let that liquid just cool off in space. Just radiate, send its heat out through radiation, just like the sun gets its radiation, its heat radiation to us. You just literally let it dissipate into space, radiate away. That's how things are cooled in space. Radiation. Let's see. Congratulations, ULA, from Tom. Absolutely. They knocked it out of the park for sure. Macbeth, if you can see the ISS tonight from the grounds, that means you can maybe also see the orbiter following the ISS. Yes. So check ISS above, or some of the apps that might let you know if you have a pass of the ISS. If you look closely, after a launch like this, you'll oftentimes see the spacecraft trailing it. So that's really cool. You'll see the ISS fly over really bright, and you might see a dim light chasing it, which is really cool. So, yeah. Daniel's Weather Space Station. Let's see. I've been watching since basically Water Towers Can Fly days. I appreciate everything you do for the space community and for teaching us different elements on different rockets. Keep it up. Well, thank you so much, Daniel's Weather Space Station. You've been around Water Towers Can Fly. That's coming up on 3 years ago. So that you're getting out there. I mean, before that, I think I took a pretty big turn right around there, around 2018, 2019, trying to make a lot deeper dive videos. And I've personally really enjoyed it. I think in general, I'm trying to kind of be the best asset I can for the spaceflight community, or those that are new to the spaceflight community. That's the biggest thing is, when you are fresh, into the stuff, trying to learn about all this stuff that's very intimidating. There's a lot of information. I'm trying to just have resources available that people can sit down and watch and just kind of fall in love with the science of it all. To me, that's awesome. Cheetah, why was max Q before Mach 1? So don't forget, maximum aerodynamic pressure it has nothing to do with your actual velocity per se. It has nothing to do with your altitude per se. It's the mixture of so as a rocket extends. So max Q, by the way, to define that, maximum aerodynamic pressure, the point at which the external pressure on the vehicle, the atmospheric pressure on the vehicle, is at its highest. So if you imagine a car on the ground speeding up, the faster it goes, the higher the aerodynamic pressure. And the maximum aerodynamic pressure a car would ever reach is the highest, the fastest it can go. if it could keep going faster, it would have a higher maximum aerodynamic pressure. But a car tends to be pretty limited by those aerodynamic forces, holding the car back, preventing it from the drag of the car, prevents it from going any faster. And it kind of becomes this exponential problem. The faster you go, the higher the drag is, et cetera, et cetera. Now, a car, obviously, it continues to be the same. It's a very linear. The faster you go, that's your max Q. A rocket, on the other hand, is actually ascending. So it's getting into thinner parts of the atmosphere. So obviously you have kind of two things that are going in opposite directions. You have the vehicle going faster. So the air pressure, the aerodynamic pressure will increase. It'll have more and more aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle because it's going faster, but it's getting into thinner atmosphere. So because the atmosphere is getting thinner and thinner, it actually starts to kind of negate that higher speed. And eventually you get to this point where even though the rocket's going faster, it's now in a higher altitude and the atmosphere is so thin, the pressure actually goes down. So that can happen at any number of points depending on the vehicle's trajectory and depending on the mission profile. So in this case, maximum aerodynamic pressure might have happened below Mach 1 because it might have been a relatively slow ascent. So because of that, it got into a higher atmosphere sooner than, and it took more of a vertical climb. Or it might have been something with, there's a whole host of reasons why it might not have correlated to Mach 1. It oftentimes correlates around Mach 1, and a lot of that's just sort of happenstance, I guess, is that Mach 1 tends to be pretty close to when aerodynamic or max Q happens. But in this case, that wasn't the case. Hopefully somewhere in that rant, I answered that question okay. Andrew Green, hey Tim, our 3 birds from Rocket Lab launched a few weeks ago and are in orbit chirping away. Thanks for today's coverage and brain dump. Always learn something with you. It's Andy from My Radar. That is so cool, Andy. I'm so glad that your 3 birds, your 3 little satellites are safely on orbit from Rocket Lab. I remember that is so cool. Congratulations to having your own satellites in space. That is crazy. That is insane to think about. I've met someone that just put satellites in space. That's just crazy. Johnny Spacer Entrepreneur. If that's about me, I guess so. Thank you. Joshua Corson just became a member. Thank you so much. Roland Mine, we appreciate your time, man. Thanks for giving us the latest space coverage. I can 3D print you a Boeing Starliner like your Falcon collection. Well, I might have to see that model. Hit me up on Twitter. If you have a good model, we might buy that. And when we start making our 1/100 model rockets of other things like Starliner and Atlas V and things like that. That'd be very cool, Roland. Hit me up. Chris Brown. Hey, Tim, what a time we live in. After launch after launch after launch, new vehicles have waited so long for the human-rated space flight design. Let's explore. Amen, Chris Brown. Funny enough, I actually have a really good friend named Chris Brown that I grew up with here in Iowa. Believe it or not, he started dating a girl named Rihanna before, the famous singer Chris Brown was ever with Rihanna. He ended up marrying Rihanna. So crazy weird coincidence that a good friend of mine, Chris Brown, married a girl named Rihanna. That's your fun story for the day. So hello to another Chris Brown. Let's see, from Kevin, thank you for your 18 months of membership. And yes, and I absolutely, D-Pod Dolphin, I will hit you up on Discord. All right, my friends, I did it. I think it's dinner time for me. I just want to thank you all for tuning in with me. It was fun. I haven't done. I'm glad to be able to do a few more streams like this because they're really fun. Of course, stand by. We've got a lot more fun content coming up. We've got 3 more parts of the Elon interview. Like I said, we have a van build. I might actually sneak one video in between then. Discord, get ready because I might throw one of those random quick videos in there. I'll tell you about it in a minute. But that's going to do it for me. Thank you guys again. If you want to help support what I do, consider becoming a Patreon supporter by going to patreon.com/everydayastronaut or become a YouTube member. Oh, and we have one more comment that snuck in here in my outro. Joshua, I've been watching you since the early Falcon Heavy days, and you helped me get through cancer and continue to teach me new things. Excited for what's next. Josiah. Dude, that's an awesome note to end on. Dude, yes. Thank you. I mean, come on. I hope that we can help give you something to look forward to and some joy in your life, especially as you have battled cancer. And I'm proud that you hopefully help you get through cancer. Hopefully you are through cancer because that's awesome. We're here for you, my friend. That is awesome, Joshua. But that's crazy. Been around since Falcon Heavy days. That's like OG. Where did I get that orange bottle? I don't even remember. It's just a hydro flask. Make your rakes breaks and don't burn out like rockets. I'm not entirely sure what that means, but thank you so much. And last one is Matteo. Thank you so much for becoming a member. All right, my friends, that's going to do it for me. I'm Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut, bringing space down to Earth for everyday people. Goodbye, everybody.